Namaskara. I am Dr. Ramaprasad KR, working as a Chief Medical Officer in Central Health Services in Bangalore. Today we will speak about this year's World Diabetic Day, which usually is celebrated every year on 14th of November. What are the aspects of diabetes we will have to look into, and care being offered to different populations, from young children who are diabetics to adults to elderly. And also we will focus on COVID-19 and its impact on the direct and indirect impact on diabetic patients in elderly and its consequences. This year's Diabetic Day's theme is access to care for treatment, for diagnostic facilities, at affordability, accessibility, and easy way of taking treatment. Diabetes, as we all know, is a disease in which sugars in our blood is raised. When our body cannot utilize, take up sugar properly, when our blood sugar level rises, this results in buildup of extra sugar in blood, which is called diabetes. It's of course one of the endocrine disorders, and this high sugar levels in the blood, which could be due to relative lack or absolute lack of insulin hormone, which is the key hormone in regulating the sugar levels in the blood. As we see in type 1 diabetes, there is absolute lack of insulin because our body's pancreas produces insulin through beta cells. This beta cells in type 1 diabetes are destroyed by autoimmunity, and the beta cells are destroyed and cannot produce insulin, and they have got absolute lack of insulin. Type 1 diabetic patients have to take insulin in order to survive. So this is why it's called insulin dependent diabetes. Another one, type 2 diabetes, which is most common. Almost 95% of the diabetic population is type 2 diabetes, wherein our pancreas, we do produce insulin, but maybe there is a shortage of insulin, not absolute lack of insulin, or inability of the insulin, which is already there in the body, to act fully to its capacity. Like there is insulin resistance, whatever the amount of insulin in the body cannot act fully to its full potential. Then also sugar level rises because insulin pancreas cannot cope up by increasing insulin. Initially it will try to increase the insulin secretion, but as time goes by it cannot cope up and our sugar level rises. And another type of diabetes, that is gestational diabetes, which happens in pregnant women, especially in second and third trimester, when their sugar levels rise because of insulin resistance due to hormones produced by placenta. In some women it starts rising, then we call it gestational diabetes, and after delivery generally it reduces and they become normal. Of course, they will be at increased risk of developing subsequent type 2 diabetes. And then there are other forms of diabetes like monogenic diabetes, wherein inherited genetic components, one or two genetic abnormalities will be there, especially maturity onset diabetes of the young. And other types like cystic fibrosis, wherein special population people with cystic fibrosis, or pancreatic calculi or chronic pancreatitis, these patients also do suffer from type of diabetes. Coming to this present scenario of accessibility to all the patients of diabetes, especially in the COVID scenario. COVID-19, which started in China in December 2019, has spread throughout the world, and we have all seen it has caused huge consequences, huge morbidity and mortality in all countries, including us. We had seen first wave and very severe second wave, and how it targets vulnerable population like elderly and those with comorbidities like especially diabetes, hypertension, kidney disease and stroke. These patients are more easily affected. In light of COVID-19, what are the aspects we will have to take more care and we will have to stress more? Let us see. COVID-19 typically increases vulnerability of diabetic patients for infection compared to normal population. They are more vulnerable because the level of immunity already in diabetic patients is very less. Their immune memory is already less, and cytokines, inflammatory cytokines, which is a hallmark of fighting infection, levels will be very less. Certain cytokines will be produced very high because interleukin 6 and TNF alpha, these cytokines are in very high level in diabetic patients, which causes inappropriate increase in responses to the infection. And severity of COVID is also very high in diabetic patients. As we have seen in many studies and conducted in China in the first phase, diabetic patients, both severity, that is hospitalizations as well as deaths due to COVID is very high in diabetic patients. Compared to normal population, diabetic patients are 3 to 4 times more susceptible for hospitalization or death. Relative risk of death due to COVID in diabetic patients is almost 10% compared to 2.5% in normal general population. Elderly people are even at an increased risk because generally their immunity levels already would be very low. On top of it, once you are a diabetic, there will be other comorbidities like hypertension, dyslipidemia and kidney disease also, or at least subclinical kidney disease will be there. These patients will be at an increased risk. Their increased risk predisposes them for immediate hospitalizations, and even mild disease can cause severe comorbidities and severe consequences. Henceforth, that's why post-vaccination, maybe this we will have to see how it is panning out. The same precautions what general population have to take for COVID, we will have to follow, especially even in diabetics and elderly. Following COVID standard precautions like masking up, use of masks, sanitization and maintaining distance has been the hallmark of preventive strategy, along with vaccination. Fully in India we are having COVID Shield and Covaxin, 2 doses of vaccines. Everybody should immediately take this vaccine. Those who have not taken immediately should take as has been approved and advised by the physicians.